yeah, we're trying to do the right thing of what you were doing. Okay, look, we had the cane, but wait a minute, time out. You see, there's also a thing. Look, when it's well, time out. Prior to what we're doing right now, when you're unemployed, part of what's going to happen to people who are when they're taking away food stamps, cutting unemployment like that, no fix for the economy, people can't. Okay, all of the things that are happening and what why this things people work on minimum wage. One of the effects of it, of course, the effect of this, the people who are like permanently out of the workforce more and more all the time. Part of what happens is people get desperate. Okay, people do get desperate, and then they get finally in the, what eventually happens is someone commits a crime out of desperation because they got to eat. Okay, that's what actually does happen to some portion of people in such a situation. Okay, of course, no one. By the way, no one steals a purse or something unless they're desperate. That's who does that. It's like they're desperate. Okay. So here's the thing, though, right? I mean, you sort of directed me to something that that was like something I wanted to talk about next. But wait a minute. I mean, you also know the sort of books we have. Listen, like Christian Parenti's book on that, like when he did that whole thing. I mean, see, it's yes. I mean, I agree with the way he's looking at it, but not in the sense that but yes and no. I mean, I'm saying, but look, yes and no. I mean, one reason why there was a major change that took place in my era, where like this sort of like crime, this sort of like policing, prisons, like everything got very like sort of like there's a militarized like sense to like things like it's very the people it is something a lot of anti-crime stuff has come about as it has but when you have this many desperate people, this many people who can't find work to feed their families, this many people unemployed, this many homeless, it's simply natural that people are going to turn to desperate measures, and there'll be more crime. So all the ramp up. I mean, Christian Reddy did a bigger analysis of it, but I mean, the point to what I was the main thing for me, right? I mean, it's the natural thing. If you wonder why, like though we're living in a police state, it's not that like the state repression is going up out of some abstract sense. It's not that. It's what the government knows what happens when there's this many desperate people, when there's this many people that can't get by on jobs. I mean, they know there's a social effect. Broken homes, latchkey kids. People committing petty crimes. There's the desperate people. I mean, there's a whole series of things that make it necessary for the policing and prison regime there to keep going up. But I mean, to say like why, to look at the fact that, I mean, that's what you end up living in, a situation where people are perceiving like like police brutality, there's that. It all comes about when there's this many people who don't have money to eat, who don't. I mean, it's part of a big picture of what happens to your society. More and more people go to jail, go to prison. Find out, but it's not what got them in there. They were desperate, is what happened, and they turned to go try to find a way to eat, and then they got arrested, and then when they were there, then they came out, and so on and so forth. I mean, then you got stuck in some system. I mean, it has a catastrophic effect on the society as a whole, but like. Right, I mean, the very fact that everyone, the prison population is going up and up and up. People like the social scientists like scratching their heads about it, doing studies. I mean, you can't have this level of income inequality, this amount of basically permanently unemployed people, and take away and then have a political party and a whole sector of the media and people in colleges with the sort of political view that the way that the help of the market, you have to be cruel to the poor and take away food stamps, even though it's not real. It's some bugged out, nasty way of looking at things. But that's like a political ideology in our country, to be hostile to people who need government assistance and write articles about cultural dependency. But they're like living in air conditioned offices, writing strange arguments why you have to take away and creates dependency. Like, what are they talking about? Like, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but people believe it. What ends up happening is like you end up living Look, when we first got to Market Street, it's not a joke though. I was making a point. I said, right, it's getting to the point where it's gonna be like in some countries, in order to like have a nice apartment, you also need like armed guards outside because it's like everyone else, the whole population is desperately poor. So right, there are places where like were you to be like in the very tiny segment of people who can like afford a big house, which you'll need armed guards and things because there's so many desperate people. It's kind of, that's what happens. We don't want to live in a country like that, but we do. And part of it is this part of the part of the media. It's part of all forms of media. It's part of the thought process on college campuses among what's called like part of conservatism. It has nothing to do with benefiting anyone. It doesn't benefit anyone. It's just a callousness towards people who need government assistance. I mean, if I have to hear somebody create weird theories or write an op-ed that explains something's wrong with government assistance, I mean, you wonder how sick everyone is. I don't know, but they put it in people's heads like that makes sense, or that somehow that would be of benefit to the invested class. If you ganked away people who are desperate, don't give them government assistance. That's in the interest of the stock market or something. I don't know what people are thinking. What it is doesn't benefit anyone. Just harms so many people and creates a situation where you have a population that's so desperate and poor, and it creates all kind of things: broken homes, this and that, everything else that comes along with being desperately poor. One reason the policing and prison regime, Christian Parenti's point, is well taken. There's a problem when you do this Republican game and all this nonsense. What happens is, here's the thing. There is one problem, though. This amount of desperate people poses what he calls an aesthetic threat to the people who write for like these conservative newspapers, right? They like want to get it hidden away. Like when we just, so you get all kinds of brutality to like get people, they want to keep everybody out of sight and not see how many people are in need of don't. It's like San Francisco is a much more humane city, right? One of the things is all the churches and things, so a lot of them serve 3 meals a day to the poor, and a lot of them like give out like blankets to the homeless. It's not done that way in most cities. They're very into that here. Guess what? When they start to do it, you see what's happening. Lines around the corner at every church. Every single time there's that many people in need of blankets, in need of like something to eat. But until in other cities where it's not done regularly at churches, you don't notice, right? The lines are around the corner at every church. There's that many people that need a free blanket, that need that haven't eaten. But I'm saying, right, one reason there's so much problem. This is what happens, but it's all unnecessary. It's all unnecessary. It just needs to be happening. That we have to even have a debate about things like maybe raising the minimum wage. That there's the people making arguments and op-ed papers that they write. I write these op-eds in an air-conditioned office explaining that you have to discontinue unemployment insurance. So I swear it's something so sick about what's happened to part of the thought process of people in the country, but it needs to stop.